Dr. He-Jin Kim stared at her computer screen in the quiet laboratory. The clock on the wall showed 11:30 p.m., but she didn't feel tired. The genetic data on her screen was too interesting to leave. The Seoul Advanced Research Institute was almost empty at this hour, just the way she liked it. She took a sip of her cold coffee and adjusted her glasses. For the past 3 months, she had been studying unusual patterns in human DNA samples. These patterns didn't match anything in their database. At first, she thought it was a mistake in her equipment, but every test showed the same results. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made her look up. That was strange. No one else should be here at this hour. The security guard, Mr. Lee, always stayed at the front desk. The laboratory door opened slowly. He-Jin expected to see the familiar face of the security guard, but instead, a tall figure entered the room. The stranger wore what looked like a silver-white suit that seemed to glow softly in the dim light. "Dr. He-Jin Kim?" the stranger asked in perfect Korean. Their voice was gentle but had an odd musical quality to it. He-Jin stood up quickly, her chair rolling backward. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" The stranger raised their hands in a peaceful gesture. "Please don't be afraid. My name is Dr. Rin. I've come a very long way to meet you." They reached into a pocket and pulled out what looked like a small crystal. When they set it on the desk, it projected a hologram into the air. He-Jin's eyes widened as she saw star systems and galaxies floating in front of her. What is this?" "I am not from Earth," Dr. Rin said simply. "I represent a civilization called the Luminary. We have been watching your planet for some time, and we need your help." He-Jin's first thought was that this must be a joke, but the hologram floating in front of her was unlike any technology she had ever seen. She looked more closely at Dr. Rin and noticed subtle differences in their appearance. Their skin had a slight silvery sheen, and their eyes seemed to change color as they moved. "Why me?" she asked, surprised by how calm she felt. "Because you've already started to notice what we came to discuss." Dr. Rin pointed to her computer screen. "Those unusual patterns you've been studying in human DNA, they're not natural. They're not random mutations or errors in your equipment. They were put there deliberately." He-Jin sat back down slowly. "Put there? By whom?" "That's what we need to find out." Dr. Rin pulled up another chair and sat down. "My civilization is thousands of years ahead of Earth in technology, but these genetic sequences, they're beyond even our understanding. We think they might be connected to an ancient race we call the predecessors." As they talked, He-Jin's scientific mind began to work through the implications. If what Dr. Rin was saying was true, it would change everything humans thought they knew about their origins. "I need to call some people," she said, reaching for her phone. "Already taken care of," Dr. Rin replied. "Your government has been informed of my arrival." In fact, they looked at their wrist, where a small device glowed softly. "Your institute director and 2 government officials should be arriving in about 3 minutes." Right on cue, He-Jin heard more footsteps in the hallway. This time, several people entered the lab. She recognized Director Park, and with him were 2 serious-looking men in dark suits. "Dr. Kim," Director Park said, his voice tense but controlled. "I see you've met our visitor." The next few hours passed in a blur of explanations and discussions. The government officials had many questions for Dr. Rin, who answered them all patiently. They explained that the Luminary had been studying Earth from a distance for several decades, watching humanity's technological progress. "We weren't planning to make contact for another 50 years, Dr. Rin explained. "But when we detected Dr. Kim's research focusing on these specific genetic sequences, we had to move our timeline forward." He-Jin listened carefully as Dr. Rin explained more about the Luminary. They were a peaceful civilization that had achieved interstellar travel centuries ago. They had discovered remnants of the predecessor civilization on various planets, but nothing as significant as what they had found in human DNA. "Think of it like finding pieces of advanced computer code hidden in your genes," Dr. Rin said, using an analogy they knew He-Jin would understand. Code that looks like it was written by someone far more advanced than either of our civilizations. As the night turned into early morning, plans were made. The government would provide a secure facility where He-Jin and Dr. Rin could work together. They would need additional researchers, carefully chosen for their expertise and discretion. Dr. Kim, one of the officials, said before leaving, "I don't need to emphasize how important it is that this stays completely confidential." He-Jin nodded. She understood the weight of what was happening. This wasn't just about scientific discovery anymore. This was about the very origin and future of humanity. After everyone left, He-Jin stayed in the lab with Dr. Rin. She had hundreds of questions, but one kept coming back to her mind. "These sequences," she said, pointing to her computer screen. "You said they were put there deliberately. Does that mean humans were engineered?" Dr. Rin's eyes shifted to a deep blue color. "That's what we need to find out. But whatever we discover, remember this: being engineered doesn't make humanity any less remarkable. In fact, if we're right about who did this engineering, it makes your species even more special." He-Jin looked at the genetic sequences on her screen with new eyes. All those patterns she had thought were errors or anomalies now looked different. They weren't mistakes. They were messages waiting to be decoded. "When do we start?" she asked. "We already have," Dr. Rin replied. "By noticing these sequences in the first place, you took the first step. The predecessors must have known that eventually someone would start asking the right questions. They were waiting for humanity to reach this point." As the first rays of sunrise began to shine through the laboratory windows, He-Jin realized her life would never be the same. She had started yesterday as a geneticist studying unusual DNA patterns. Now she was part of something much bigger, unlocking a mystery that had been hidden in human DNA for millions of years. Dr. Rin stood up and walked to the window, looking at the rising sun. "Your sun looks different from ours," they said softly. "We have 3 suns in our home system, but there's something beautiful about a single sun rising. It reminds me of why we explore, to find beauty in different places, to learn from each other." He-Jin joined them at the window. "Will there be others coming? More luminary?" "Soon," Dr. Rin nodded. "We'll need more researchers, equipment that your planet doesn't have yet. But we chose to send me first because I've spent years studying human culture and biology. We wanted this first contact to be gentle." He-Jin thought about how her life would change. She would have to lie to her friends, her family. They couldn't know what she was really working on. But the importance of this work outweighed everything else. "Dr. Rin," she said, "those government officials didn't ask the most important question. What happens if we do decode these sequences? What if we find out why they were put there?" Dr. Rin turned to look at her, their eyes now a deep purple color. "That's what the Luminary Council is worried about. These sequences, they're like a locked door. And no one knows what's on the other side. But whatever it is, it was important enough for the most advanced civilization we know of to hide it in your DNA." The implications of that statement hung in the air between them. Whatever secret was hidden in human DNA, it was powerful enough that an ancient, highly advanced civilization had chosen to preserve it this way. "We should get some rest," Dr. Rin said finally. "Tomorrow, we start building our research team. We'll need the best minds we can find." He-Jin nodded, but her mind was already racing with possibilities. As she gathered her things to leave, she took one last look at her computer screen. The genetic sequences seemed to blur together, like a code waiting to be broken. As she walked out of the laboratory with Dr. Rin, she couldn't help but smile. Every scientist dreams of making a discovery that changes the world. But she might be about to make a discovery that changes humanity's understanding of itself. The morning sun cast long shadows across the empty hallways of the Institute. Tomorrow, these halls would be full of people going about their normal work, unaware that in one secure laboratory, humans and aliens would be working together to unlock a secret hidden in their very genes. It was the beginning of something extraordinary, and He-Jin Kim was ready for whatever came next. 1 week after Dr. Rin's arrival, He-Jin found herself working in a new laboratory. The government had converted an underground facility into a state-of-the-art research center. The walls were bright white, and the equipment was a mix of Earth technology and strange devices the luminary had brought. Dr. Sun-Ho Park sat at his computer station, his fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. As the team's quantum computing expert, he was responsible for processing the massive amounts of genetic data they were collecting. At first, he hadn't believed He-Jin when she told him about the alien discovery. But after meeting Dr. Rin, he had quickly joined the project. He-Jin, Sun-Ho called out, "Come look at this pattern. It's showing up again." She walked over to his station. On his screen, a complex pattern of genetic code was highlighted in blue. They had seen similar patterns before, but this one was different. "It's like looking at a computer program," Sun-Ho said, pointing to the screen. "See how these sequences repeat? They're too regular to be natural." Dr. Rin moved silently across the room to join them. Their silver-white suits seemed to adjust to the laboratory's lighting, never looking too bright or too dark. "Those patterns," they said, "they remind me of something we found in the predecessor ruins on Kepler 186. He-Jin looked up with interest. She was still getting used to how casually Dr. Rin mentioned other planets. "What did you find there?" "Data storage crystals," Dr. Rin replied. "They held information in patterns very similar to these, but we've never been able to decode them fully. The technology was too advanced." Sun-Ho leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms. "So the predecessors found a way to store information in DNA. But why? And why humans?" Before anyone could answer, one of the luminary devices on the wall started making a soft chiming sound. Dr. Rin walked over to it quickly, their eyes changing to a deep green color, a sign of excitement. He-Jin had learned. "The deep scan is complete," Dr. Rin announced. They waved their hand over the device, and a holographic display filled the center of the room. It showed a three-dimensional model of the DNA sequences they were studying. "Look at this," Dr. Rin pointed to a specific section. "These sequences aren't just storage. They're dormant, like sleeping code in a computer program, waiting to be activated." He-Jin felt her heart beat faster. "Activated? You mean these sequences could actually do something?" "Theoretically, yes." Dr. Rin manipulated the hologram, zooming in on different sections. "But we need to be very careful. We don't know what might trigger them, or what they might do if activated." Sun-Ho stood up and walked around the hologram, studying it from different angles. "It's beautiful," he said quietly, "like a piece of art made from genetic code." They spent the next few hours analyzing the new data. He-Jin noticed that some of the sequences seemed to be connected to parts of the brain that controlled memory and cognitive function. Sun-Ho found patterns that suggested the code could self-replicate under certain conditions. As they worked, more luminary scientists arrived at the facility. They moved gracefully around the laboratory, their suits changing color slightly to match their surroundings. Each one brought new equipment and new perspectives to the research. Late in the evening, when most of the team had gone home, He-Jin made a breakthrough. She was looking at a section of code that had seemed random before, but now she saw something different. "Dr. Rin," she called out excitedly, "I think I found something. These sequences, they're not just data storage. They're more like instructions." Dr. Rin came to look at her screen, their eyes shifting to a curious yellow color. "Instructions for what?" "I'm not sure yet, but look at this." He-Jin pointed to several sections of code. "These parts are like markers or signposts. They're guiding something through the DNA. And here," she highlighted another section. "This looks like it's waiting for a specific signal." Dr. Rin's eyes widened slightly. "A signal? From what?" "I don't know," He-Jin admitted. "But whatever these sequences are designed to do, they're not meant to stay dormant forever. They're waiting for something." Sun-Ho, who had been quietly working nearby, joined them. Could it be waiting for us to reach a certain level of technology? Or maybe for contact with other civilizations? Both, perhaps, Dr. Rin said thoughtfully. The predecessors were known for their long-term planning. If they put this code in human DNA, they must have had a reason. He-Jin sat back in her chair, her mind racing with possibilities. What if they were trying to preserve something? Something they couldn't trust to regular storage methods. Like what? Sunho asked. Knowledge, He-Jin said slowly. Their knowledge, their memories, their history. What better way to preserve information than to encode it into the DNA of an entire species? The room fell silent as they considered this idea. Dr. Rin's eyes had turned a deep purple, a color He-Jin had learned meant they were deeply concerned. If you're right, Dr. Rin said finally, then this is bigger than we thought. The predecessors were the most advanced civilization we know of. If they encoded their knowledge into human DNA, then humans are carrying the most valuable library in the galaxy, Sunho finished. He-Jin looked at her computer screen again. Those strange patterns that had puzzled her for months now seemed different. They weren't just anomalies or curiosities. They were a message, a gift, maybe even a responsibility passed down through countless generations. We need to be careful how we proceed, Dr. Rin said. If other civilizations learn about this, Earth could become a target. Not everyone would respect humanity's right to control their own genetic heritage. He-Jin nodded. She understood the danger. Their discovery could change everything, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. As if to emphasize the point, one of the luminary devices started beeping urgently. Sunho rushed to check it. The sequences, he said, his voice tense. They're changing. What? He-Jin and Dr. Rin said together. Look. Sunho pulled up the data on the main screen. The patterns we've been studying. They're starting to shift. It's like they know we're looking at them. Dr. Rin moved quickly to another device, checking readings. This is unprecedented. The sequences shouldn't be able to change on their own. He-Jin watched the screen in amazement as the patterns shifted and reorganized themselves. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Whatever the predecessors had hidden in human DNA, it wasn't just passive information. It was alive in its own way, waiting for the right moment to reveal its secrets. Should we stop? Sunho asked, looking worried. Dr. Rin's eyes shifted through several colors before settling on a determined blue. No, we've come too far to stop now. But we need to document everything carefully. Whatever happens next, we need to understand it. He-Jin looked around the laboratory at the mix of human and luminary technology, at her colleagues both human and alien working together to unlock this mystery. She realized that this moment, humans and aliens working together to understand humanity's hidden potential, might be exactly what the predecessors had been waiting for. The sequences continued to shift on the screen, like a cosmic dance written in the language of DNA. Whatever secrets they held, whatever message the predecessors had left for humanity, they were about to find out. The discovery wasn't just about understanding the past anymore. It was about unlocking humanity's future. And as the night grew deeper, the team worked on, knowing they were on the brink of something that would change everything they thought they knew about human existence. The first dream came to He-Jin 3 days after they observed the shifting sequences. In her sleep, she saw strange symbols and complex equations that she had never encountered before. When she woke up, she could still remember them perfectly. At the research facility, she found Dr. Rin already waiting for her. The luminary scientist's eyes were a deep gold color, a sign of intense curiosity. You had a dream, Dr. Rin said. It wasn't a question. He-Jin stopped walking. How did you know? Because you're not the only one, Dr. Rin replied. We've received reports from 12 other scientists around the world. All of them work in advanced research fields. All of them had similar dreams last night. Dr. Jae-Yun Lee, the team's neurologist, arrived at that moment. She carried a tablet filled with brain scan data. The patterns are identical, she said, showing them the screen. Every person who reported these dreams shows the same unusual brain activity. They gathered in the main laboratory. Sun Ho was already there, looking tired but excited. I had the dream too, he said. But that's not the strange part. This morning, I solved a quantum computing problem that's been stumping me for months. The solution just came to me. He Jin felt a shiver run down her spine. She had experienced something similar. The complex genetic analysis that usually took her hours to complete now seemed obvious to her. Dr. Jai-yun set up her equipment to monitor their brain activity. Your neural patterns have changed, she announced after running some tests. It's as if your brains have formed new connections overnight. The sequences, Dr. Rin said quietly, they're not just changing themselves anymore. They're changing you. He Jin looked at her hands. She didn't feel different, but somehow she knew things she hadn't known before. Complex mathematical formulas floated through her mind with perfect clarity. More reports came in throughout the day. A physicist in Mumbai suddenly understood a new theory of quantum gravity. A biotechnology researcher in Toronto made a breakthrough in cellular regeneration. A computer scientist in Lagos developed a revolutionary algorithm. It's happening faster than we expected, Dr. Rin said, their eyes shifting between colors rapidly. The dormant sequences aren't just awakening. They're activating something in human minds. Dr. Jai-yun continued her tests. The changes seem to be enhancing existing abilities rather than creating new ones. It's like the sequences are unlocking potential that was always there. Sun Ho worked at his computer, his fingers flying over the keyboard faster than ever. The patterns in the code, I can see them now. They're not just data storage. They're more like keys. Keys to what? He Jin asked, though part of her already knew the answer. To knowledge, Sun Ho replied. The predecessors didn't just store information in our DNA. They stored the ability to understand it. Dr. Rin received a message on their communication device. Their eyes turned a deep purple. The Luminary Council is concerned. Some members believe this activation should be stopped before it goes further. Can it be stopped? Dr. Jai-yun asked, looking up from her tests. I don't think so, He Jin said. She walked to the holographic display showing the active sequences. Look at the pattern. It's not just changing randomly. It's following a predetermined path, like a program running exactly as it was designed to. More reports came in throughout the afternoon. The number of affected people had grown to several hundred, all of them scientists or researchers working in advanced fields. Each person reported similar experiences, dreams filled with complex information, followed by sudden insights and enhanced understanding. Dr. Jai-yun compiled the data from her tests. The changes are stable, she announced. Whatever is happening to your brains, it's not causing any damage. If anything, your neural efficiency has improved dramatically. He Jin felt a strange sense of calm. The knowledge flowing through her mind should have been overwhelming, but it felt natural, as if she was remembering things rather than learning them. The predecessors must have known this would happen, she said. They designed these sequences to activate when humanity reached a certain level of scientific understanding. When we were ready. Ready for what? Sun Ho asked. Before anyone could answer, all the luminary devices in the laboratory activated at once. Holograms filled the air, showing complex data streams that He Jin could now understand perfectly. Those are predecessor symbols, Dr. Rin said, their eyes wide. How can you read them? I just can. He Jin walked through the holograms, reading the ancient language as easily as her native Korean. Their instructions, the predecessors, they were preparing us. Preparing us for what? Dr. Jai-yun asked. He Jin turned to face her colleagues. For everything they knew, everything they discovered, everything they were. She paused, trying to put into words the understanding flowing through her mind. They weren't just storing their knowledge in our DNA. They were storing their legacy. Dr. Rin's eyes turned a deep blue. The Luminary have spent centuries trying to understand predecessor technology. Now you can read their language as if you were born to it. We were, Sun Ho said quietly. That's the point, isn't it? The predecessors engineered humanity to be their successors. They built the ability to understand their knowledge into our very genes. The implications of this revelation hung in the air. Humanity wasn't just carrying predecessor knowledge. They were designed to be able to understand and use it. Dr. Jai-yun looked at her latest test results. The activation seems to be spreading. As more people experience these changes, they're somehow triggering the sequences in others. It's like a cascade effect. Should we be worried? Sun Ho asked. Hajin shook her head. No, this is exactly what's supposed to happen. The predecessors designed these sequences to activate gradually, to give us time to adjust. They didn't want to overwhelm us with everything at once. Dr. Rin received another message from the Luminary Council. They're sending more scientists, they announced. This goes beyond anything we've ever encountered. The Council wants to understand exactly what's happening. What's happening? He-jin said, is that humanity is waking up. The predecessors left us their knowledge, but they also left us the ability to understand it, to use it, to build on it. She looked around at her colleagues, human and luminary alike. In their own way, they were all part of this awakening. The predecessors hadn't just preserved their knowledge. They had ensured it would live on through humanity, growing and evolving in new ways. As the day turned to evening, more reports came in from around the world. The number of affected people had grown into the thousands. Each person reported similar experiences, dreams of knowledge, enhanced understanding, and a strange sense of purpose. Hajin stood at the window, watching the sunset. The world outside looked the same, but she knew everything had changed. Humanity had taken its first step into an awakening that had been planned millions of years ago. And this was just the beginning. 1 month after the first activations, the research facility had transformed. New luminary scientists arrived daily, bringing advanced equipment to study the changes in human DNA. The original laboratory had expanded to fill 3 underground levels. Hajin sat in the main conference room with Dr. Rin, Sun Ho, and Dr. Jai-yun. They were reviewing data from the worldwide activation events. On the large screen before them, a map showed thousands of points of light, each representing a person whose dormant sequences had activated. The pattern is clear now, Hajin said, pointing to the display. The activations are following the spread of scientific knowledge. It's like a wave moving through the global research community. Dr. Jai-yun nodded, checking her neural scanning data. And the changes are stable. Everyone who has experienced activation shows the same enhanced cognitive patterns. No negative effects have been reported. Sun Ho pulled up a new display showing the decoded predecessor messages. We've only translated about 10% of the stored information, but it's already revolutionary. Their understanding of physics, biology, and consciousness far exceeds anything we imagined. Dr. Ren's eyes shifted to a deep gold color as they studied the translations. In all our centuries of space exploration, we never found anything like this. The predecessors didn't just leave their knowledge. They left instructions for how to use it. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Dr. Rin checked their communication device, their eyes changing to a worried purple. The Luminary Council has called an emergency session. Some members are concerned about the speed of human advancement. They're afraid. He-jin said simply. It wasn't a question. Yes. Dr. Rin looked at each of them in turn. What's happening here goes against everything we thought we knew about species development. Some council members fear that humanity is advancing too quickly, that it might be dangerous. Sun Ho laughed softly. They don't understand. The predecessors planned this carefully. Each piece of knowledge only becomes accessible when we're ready to understand it. He-jin walked to the window, looking out at the secure facility grounds. More luminary ships had arrived, their sleek forms gleaming in the morning sun. We need to show them the latest translation, she said quietly. Dr. Rin's eyes flickered with interest. You found something important. He-Jin nodded and returned to the main display. She pulled up a series of decoded messages that they had discovered the previous night. The ancient symbols glowed softly on the screen. The predecessors left us more than just scientific knowledge, she explained. They left us their story, and now we know why they chose humanity. The room fell silent as He-Jin displayed the translation. The words appeared in multiple languages: Korean, English, and the flowing script of the luminary. They were dying, He-Jin continued. Not just as individuals, but as a species. They had reached the pinnacle of technological advancement, but something was wrong. Their civilization was failing, and they couldn't stop it. What was killing them? Dr. Jae-hyun asked. Success, Sun-ho answered, reading through the translation. They had solved every problem, answered every question. They had no more challenges, no more reasons to grow or change. Their civilization had become static, perfect, and ultimately sterile. Dr. Rin's eyes turned a deep blue of understanding. They needed something more than just technological advancement. Yes, He-Jin said. They needed a species that could do more than just inherit their knowledge. They needed a species that could use it in new ways, that could continue to grow and evolve. They needed successors who would not just preserve their legacy, but build upon it. She brought up another section of the translation. They searched countless worlds, studied thousands of species, and they found humanity, primitive by their standards, but with unique potential. They saw in us something they had lost: creativity, adaptability, and most importantly, the drive to keep reaching for more. The implications of this revelation filled the room. Humanity hadn't been chosen simply as a storage device for predecessor knowledge. They had been chosen as true successors, selected for their potential to surpass even their creators. Dr. Jae-hyun studied the neural scan data with new understanding. The activated sequences, they're not just giving us knowledge. They're enhancing our natural abilities, our existing potential. Exactly, He-Jin confirmed. The predecessors didn't want to create copies of themselves. They wanted to give us the tools to become something new, something they couldn't predict or control. Sun-ho suddenly straightened in his chair, his eyes wide. There's more, he said, pointing to a newly decoded section. Look at this part. They left warnings about something they discovered, something they couldn't solve. Dr. Rin moved closer to the screen, their eyes shifting rapidly between colors. A threat? To all advanced civilizations? Not exactly, He-Jin said, reading the ancient text. More like a fundamental challenge. Something about the nature of consciousness and technology that they couldn't overcome. They believed that humanity, with its different perspective, might find answers they couldn't see. The room fell silent again as they considered this information. The predecessors hadn't just been preserving their knowledge, they had been preparing humanity for challenges they themselves had failed to overcome. A series of urgent messages arrived from the Luminary Council. Different factions were arguing about how to proceed. Some wanted to help humanity develop this new potential. Others feared the implications of such rapid advancement. They don't understand, Sun-ho said, shaking his head. This isn't about advancing too quickly. It's about advancing differently. He-Jin nodded. The predecessors knew that technological advancement alone wasn't enough. They chose humanity because we have something they lost: the ability to see things in new ways, to find unexpected solutions. Dr. Rin received another message, their eyes turning a determined green. I need to speak to the council. They need to understand what we've discovered here. This isn't just about humanity anymore. It's about the future of all intelligent life. As Dr. Rin prepared to leave, He-Jin looked at the translated messages again. The predecessors' final gift wasn't just their knowledge. It was their trust in humanity's potential to succeed where they have failed. Whatever challenges are coming, she said quietly, we'll face them our own way. That's what the predecessors were counting on. The truth had emerged, but it wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of humanity's real journey. not just to inherit the legacy of an ancient civilization, but to forge their own path forward, armed with both ancient wisdom and human creativity. Outside the facility, more ships arrived, carrying scientists and observers from across the galaxy. The secret hidden in human DNA had been revealed, but its full implications were still unfolding. Humanity stood at the threshold of a new era, preparing to take their place among the stars not just as inheritors, but as innovators. 3 months after the truth about the predecessors emerged, Earth had become the center of galactic attention. Ships from various civilizations orbited the planet, waiting to see what humanity would do with their newfound knowledge and abilities. In the underground facility, Ho Jin studied the latest data from worldwide activation events. Nearly 1 million people had now experienced the awakening of their dormant sequences. Each person brought new perspectives to the ancient knowledge, finding applications that even the predecessors hadn't imagined. Dr. Yoon-Tae Choi, the team's diplomatic advisor, entered the main laboratory. He had spent the past week in meetings with representatives from different alien civilizations. The Luminary Council has made their decision, he announced. They want to establish a formal alliance with Earth. Jin looked up from her work. And the other civilizations? They're divided, Yoon-Tae replied. Some want to help guide humanity's development. Others think we should be contained, that we're developing too quickly. He paused. A few have made threats. Dr. Rin, who had been working quietly at another station, turned to join the conversation. Their eyes showed a mix of colors, concern and hope blending together. The Council believes an alliance is the best way to protect Earth while humanity continues to develop. Sun Ho walked in, carrying new simulation results. They're right to be concerned, he said. Look at what we've achieved in just 3 months. He displayed the results on the main screen. Humans with activated sequences had already made breakthrough discoveries in quantum physics, cellular regeneration, and consciousness transfer. New technologies were being developed at an unprecedented rate. Dr. Jai-yun, who had been monitoring the health of activated individuals, joined them. The changes are still stable, she reported. And we're seeing something interesting. People are developing different specialties. It's like the predecessor knowledge is adapting to each person's natural talents. That's exactly what was supposed to happen, Jin said. She walked to the central holographic display and brought up the latest translations of predecessor messages. They didn't want us to simply copy their knowledge. They wanted us to transform it, to use it in ways they never imagined. A soft alarm sounded throughout the facility. On the monitors, they could see a group of ships entering Earth's orbit. These weren't luminary vessels. They belonged to a species known for their aggressive expansion. The Arcturians, Dr. Rin said, their eyes turning a worried purple. They've been demanding access to activated humans for study. They believe they can extract the predecessor knowledge by force. Yoon-Tae checked his communication device. They're demanding we surrender key research personnel, including Jin and Sun Ho. They're threatening military action if we refuse. Jin felt a strange calm. The knowledge flowing through her mind showed her possibilities that the Arcturians couldn't imagine. They don't understand, she said quietly. The predecessor knowledge can't be taken by force. It has to be earned, learned, and transformed. She turned to Dr. Rin. Can you get me a direct communication link to their fleet? Minutes later, Ho Jin stood before a holographic projection showing the Arcturian commander. The alien's crystalline form glowed with aggressive energy. You think you can threaten us? Jin asked calmly. The predecessors chose humanity for a reason. Let me show you why. She sent a burst of data through the communication link. It contained a small fraction of the activated knowledge, but presented in a way the Arcturians had never seen before. Their ship's systems began to respond, reconfiguring themselves in ways their builders had never intended. That's impossible, the commander said. Our technology is based on fragments of predecessor science you found. Jin finished. But you never understood the principles behind it. We do, and we're already building upon them. The Arcturian ships powered down their weapons. On the screens, other vessels from various civilizations moved to surround them, led by the Luminary fleet. Dr. Rin's eyes showed proud gold colors. The Council anticipated this. They've been coordinating with other peaceful civilizations to protect Earth. Yungai worked quickly at his diplomatic station, coordinating with Earth's governments and alien representatives. Within hours, a historic agreement was drafted. Earth would share its developing knowledge and insights, but on its own terms. Humanity would maintain control of its genetic heritage and the right to develop at its own pace. In the following days, representatives from civilizations across the galaxy gathered on Earth. He-Jin found herself explaining humanity's unique perspective to beings of incredible diversity. Some were energy forms, others were collective consciousnesses, and still others had physical forms that defied easy description. The predecessors knew what they were doing, she told them. They didn't just give us knowledge. They gave us the opportunity to see it with fresh eyes. Every human who experiences activation brings new perspectives, new possibilities. Sun Ho demonstrated this by showing how human creativity was already building upon predecessor science. Problems that had stumped advanced civilizations for millennia were being approached in entirely new ways. Dr. Jai Yun's research revealed that the activated sequences were still evolving, adapting to humanity's growing understanding. We're not just reading the predecessor's book, she explained. We're writing new chapters. As the day of the formal alliance signing approached, He-Jin stood with Dr. Rin in the facility's observation room, watching the sunset. Ships from 100 civilizations filled the sky, their lights mixing with the stars. We were wrong about your species, Dr. Rin admitted, their eyes a thoughtful blue. We thought humanity needed guidance, protection, but the predecessors knew better. They saw what we couldn't, that sometimes the student can surpass the teacher by walking a different path. He-Jin nodded. That's why they chose us. Not because we were perfect, but because we were perfectly imperfect. Because we would question, challenge, and reimagine everything they taught us. The next morning, representatives from Earth's nations gathered with delegates from across the galaxy. The Alliance Treaty was more than just a diplomatic document. It was recognition that humanity had earned its place among the stars. As He-Jin signed her name alongside alien signatures of incredible diversity, she thought about the long journey ahead. The predecessors had given humanity an incredible gift, but it was up to them to use it wisely. They would face challenges that even the predecessors couldn't solve, but they would face them in their own way, with their own unique blend of ancient wisdom and human innovation. The secret hidden in human DNA had been revealed, but it wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of humanity's evolution, not into copies of the predecessors, but into something entirely new. They would carry forward the legacy of an ancient civilization while forging their own path into the future. As the signing ceremony concluded, the sky above the facility filled with lights, a celebration from the assembled ships of 100 civilizations. Humanity had taken its place in the galactic community, not as students or successors, but as equals ready to contribute their unique perspective to the ongoing story of intelligent life in the universe. The predecessors' final gift hadn't just been their knowledge. It had been their faith in humanity's potential to become something they themselves could never have imagined. And now, that potential was finally being realized.